Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Sweet Nothings podcast. If you're new here, my name is Kelly, and this is your home, or new home, if you will, of relaxed, funny, and informative chats all about the love of eating. We'll talk about the latest food trends, controversial opinions, and just about all things edible. Feel free to stick around if that sounds like your kind of thing. If not, I don't know how you got here in the first place, but I'm happy to see you regardless. It is January, folks. Sadly, if you're watching via YouTube at the moment, you'll probably be able to tell there's a cold lighting from the fog outside. My skin is as pale as the white walls behind me. It's I'm feeling it. I haven't actually been home to celebrate Christmas with the family in Scotland yet, so I'm not in full typical January misery. And hope not to be. I'm trying to skip it. I'm trying to fake it till I make it through January. I don't know if you guys can relate. Maybe you like January. Maybe you have a birthday in January. Maybe you have, I don't know, holidays, things to look forward to. But typically it can be a rough month. If you're feeling, jokes aside, if you are feeling affected by it, especially if it's, in regard to issues with eating, your relationship with food, do feel free to go and check out the kind of previous January episodes recorded all about how to delete the concept of the January detox or the January diet from your brain, because that's not why we're depressed this month. We're just depressed because the Christmas lights come down and, most of the nice food is gone from the cupboards and there's no good excuse to fill them up again just yet until the Easter eggs start coming out in 3 days. Today, to cheer us up a little bit, or actually to depress us even more now that I think about it, the options are two. You can take this episode however you like. Today I want to talk about nostalgia, and I want to talk about nostalgia specifically with regard to food of the past. Not, Dickensian, but food we remember perhaps from our childhood, from our adolescence, or food we just wish would come back, whether those are specific products or food trends. If you are listening from the UK, I think you will particularly relate or enjoy this episode, enjoy this episode rather. If you're from outside of the UK, this one might be kind of hyper specific and might not be up your alley, or there might be lots to learn here. So that's my disclaimer at only 2 minutes into the episode. But first, let's dig into the inevitable comments I have to make as your local nosy cow into trends and items that have dropped in the last kind of month and a half, 2 months that it's been since I last recorded, because I am a professional procrastinator. The main trend that also ties into being a product is the absolutely relentless continuation of this Dubai chocolate. Now, if you have missed this still, I think this started around the summertime. The Dubai chocolate is essentially a cheap milk chocolate filled with pistachio cream and pieces of, pardon my pronunciation, kataifi pastry, which is a sort of almost spaghettini-shaped crispy pastry, somewhat reminiscent of phyllo, and it's all put inside this chocolate bar that's being sold as Dubai chocolate because one company in Dubai started selling it. People are buying it at heinously high prices or trying to recreate it at home or jumping onto the trend, or putting it into, bakery products to try and be relevant. Just fine. It happens all the time. But this trend just isn't going away for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because it's the first time that some people are tasting pistachio. I'm very fortunate to live somewhere where I'm constantly surrounded by pistachio products of varying quality, but that I would understand. Otherwise, I don't know why this is persisting so much. But even Lindt, our home of the terrifying, eternally young master chocolatier, have started producing Dubai style chocolate, as they're calling it. I don't know if this is already available in the UK. If so, when I head home next week, I will try and film some review videos for you guys on the channel. Otherwise, it's on the way. And it's essentially just a Lindt chocolate bar with this pistachio cream, with a very, very small percentage of pistachio inside, I should add, and some of that crispy pastry inside. Maybe it'll be good. You know, there's no ingredient in there that's bad. I just don't understand why this trend of all trends has just got us in its grips for so long this year. Especially considering the price of most of these products, whether they're knockoffs, whether they're, you know, made at home as well. There are so many good quality chocolates out there, milk or dark chocolate, and there are so many great companies making fabulous quality chocolate, bean to bar, really creative, really properly delicious, and even good for you stuff out there that, to me, it's slightly insane that people are happy to drop over, you know, €10, £10, £8, whatever it is, for a chocolate bar that's essentially the same quality as like Nutella or worse. You know, I don't know. I think that's the main thing that bugs me about it. Otherwise, I'll probably like it when I taste it. Something that really made me laugh in terms of a new product that dropped, obviously in December, we're now in January, but Primula, the brand of squeezy cheese in the UK that I've never tried. I've seen it in other people's fridges and I've seen it in the supermarket. I've never tried it. I'm a big Dairy Lee girl, big laughing cow girl, big laughing cow myself. So I kind of get where the appeal comes from with cheese in a tube. But they made a pigs and blankets flavor for December, and I truly cannot imagine anything more perplexing as a flavor combination, because I just know it must have had that like fake bacon flavoring in it, you know, like smoky bacon crisps. I don't know, truly shudder worthy stuff. Also, who is that for? Who are you marketing that to? I always thought Primula was like the kind of cheese that people bought when they wanted to limit their intake of cheese, like if they were on a diet or some kind of calorie restriction, because you can squeeze it out. But I have no idea. I truly have no idea. Reese's have released chocolate peanut butter ice cream in the UK, apparently for the first time. I feel like it's existed before. Perhaps I'm wrong though. They've released it both in like your classic kind of 400 or 500 ml tub form, and also like a stick format, like the Maltesers ones, or like a Magnum, like £5 each. Not for the sticks, or like £5 for the tub, or like £4.50, £5 for a box of 2 or 3 sticks. Steep, but that's the world we live in. And the last thing that kind of made me, I don't want to say laugh, I also don't want to say cry. It made me react physically and viscerally inside when I saw it, was there's a brand called the Gym Kitchen, which already tells you and me everything we need to know, that released high protein milk over the course of the last like month and a half, 2 months. Just, you know, without wishing to do the whole, you know, in my day, but milk, like cow's milk, literally contains the nutrients required to build from scratch and grow a cow. Like, I don't know if I'm making myself clear there. Like, cow's milk contains all of the nutrients, calories, protein, fat, everything required to grow a cow. And you want more protein in there. It has everything needed to DIY probably the biggest, most heavy, most, you know, gigantic animal that the UK has. And you want more protein in it to grow your muscles as a person who works in an office 9 to 5. I don't know. I really don't know. You know, the quantity of milk that bodybuilders and gym bros ingest is already terrifying. They added to that protein powder, and now you want a high protein version of milk with no fat in it. I don't want to get all 1950s on you and say what happened and get all old fashioned, but truly milk is naturally very high in protein. And what must that taste like? Do they add whey powder? I don't want to know. I needed to vent about that for 30 seconds. Other than that, basically everything that comes out in December is a Christmassy version of something. And there was nothing particularly innovative or shocking this month, aside from the pigs in blankets squeezy cheese, because that's an insane phrase just on its own. And everything that then comes out in January is just a new vegan product or like a new diet friendly, lifestyle change friendly version of something like high protein milk. So truly nothing has blown my socks off in terms of announcements or trends at the moment, and that's just fine. Today, though, I want to get into nostalgia in food. I want to get into foods and food trends that we miss, that we wish would come back. As I do almost every month, reached out to you guys on Instagram and on YouTube to ask what you miss, what you wish would come back. And quite kind of, not amusingly, but quite entertainingly in the responses, it was almost all products, hyper-specific products, memories that you have from childhood or adolescence, whatever it may be. And then I want to talk about the ones I personally miss and some trends that I wish would kind of come back a bit more than I think they ever will. But let's first talk about the ones that you guys mentioned. Again, these are fairly specific to the UK. Some of these are probably also available in other parts of Europe or in the US, but you can tell my audience is mostly British, and I found that very entertaining as I read your responses. The main one here, some of these actually shocked me too because I didn't know that they weren't still available. For example, Calippo shots was one of the first responses. Those little kind of tiny spherical flavored ice things that used to come in like a plastic container that you would, I don't know if people would normally get them from the supermarket. To me, it was the kind of thing you would normally get from those like chest freezers in the summer in, I don't know, like in a newsagent, or you would get them straight from the ice cream van when it came round. And they were like green, orange and pink, if I remember rightly. I'm trying to go by memory because the nostalgia will bring me there. I think I only had these a couple of times. There wasn't really many occasions in Scotland where it was hot enough to even warrant needing something frozen. But a couple of people responded with that. I didn't know you couldn't still get them. I thought they were still around, but they were. They were pretty good. And they were always weird to eat because you just kind of had to throw them into your mouth like a shot, I guess, hence the name. But that one did kind of put a smile on my face when I looked at it. Another response I got, and again, I did not know that these weren't still available, was the plain chocolate or the kind of darker chocolate Bounty bar. The Bounty, I think, is available all across Europe. The closest equivalent in the US or outside of Europe, I think, would be the Almond Joy, but without the almond, or like a Mounds bar, I think is probably the closest thing across the pond. And the Bounty is a kind of chewy, but also somewhat creamy, super sweet, coconut-filled chocolate bar with milk chocolate, like a super thin milk chocolate on the outside. And it comes in blue and white. It comes in a blue and white wrapper with like palm trees and things. And I remember also that there was this plain or dark chocolate version, which was like a red and white or dark orange and white wrapper. And it worked pretty well because a Bounty is very sweet, very rich because, it's sugar, coconut and chocolate. Literally, what else could it be? So the dark chocolate or the plain chocolate that wasn't as kind of milky and sweet as the original was quite a welcome balance for that, I had no idea these didn't still exist, but there you go. Something I've never tried, but someone was very passionate about in the response was the Red Bull Winter Edition. I don't remember if this was the one that came in the white can or if the one in the white can's still available, but it's different. Apparently this was fig and apple flavoured, which sounds very upmarket for Red Bull, I have to say. Never been a big fan of energy drinks. In general, I'll have them now and again, but they all have that kind of same underlying background flavour that I'm just not a big fan of. But fig and apple is an interesting one. Seasonal ingredient choices from Red Bull, okay. Another one that shocked me to read because I didn't know it wasn't still available, and this was something I used to have a lot, despite my previous comments about ice cream in Scotland not being best friends. This was like a classic thing that I personally used to find in my granny's freezer if I would go and visit in the summer, in the sticky, balmy heat of Inverness, and that is the red fruits Solero. The Solero, I think the classic one is mango and passion fruit, or just passion fruit. And it's a kind of ice lolly, soft ice lolly texture on the outside with this rippled vanilla ice cream with passion fruit on the inside. And it is delicious. Quality, highly questionable, but the flavor combination was so good. The kind of thing that was really good after dinner as well, because it was refreshing, fruity and creamy at the same time. Didn't have that kind of annoying icy texture of like an ice lolly, but also wasn't too heavy like a Magnum. And there was this kind of darker reddish purple one that I remember as well, which I never liked as much as the classic one, hence why it's probably been discontinued. And yeah, apparently it doesn't exist anymore, and someone really wants a little taste of it back. I totally understand. Something that I got as a response more than once, and this is if anyone from the Food Review UK squad, group chat, or fan base is listening to right now, is the Cadbury Fuse. This is a big topic among UK food reviewers in general, to be honest. I have to admit, I never tried it. I do not remember it. I don't know when they discontinued it, but it's something that I was either too young to remember, or it's just something that was never on my radar. But the Fuse bar was a Cadbury chocolate bar, if I'm not wrong, with raisins, peanuts, crispy bits of something, and also like bits of chewy fudge in there. Do let me know in any comments or DMs if I'm wrong. But it was very, very popular apparently. Or in hindsight, it's very loved and lots of people would want it back. Hashtag reignite the fuse. Someone outside of the UK, for a change, said that soy yogurt is a thing that you don't find anymore. Now, this leans more towards like a trend than a product specifically. And, you know, I can kind of see that. Soy in general, when we received the big wave of like wellness and veganism 5 to 10 years ago, probably closer to 10. I truly am older than I think. Soy kind of got knocked out of the park a little bit. It got knocked out of the main frame of, you know, acceptable dairy replacements, even though it had been a reliable dairy replacement since like the 1970s, in favor of, you know, almond, oat, coconut, lots of things that are much more expensive, probably also more environmentally friendly in the long run, or sustainable. But yeah, you don't really see kind of soy replacements on their own as much anymore. This was from a US commenter, I believe, saying that, you know, unflavored, just classic soy yogurt, for example, is something they just can't find anymore, because trends, you know, towards other dairy replacements have kind of killed it. And that's something I didn't really think about until I read that. Back to UK junk food nostalgia, though. Someone really wants to re-experience the Walker's barbecue crisps. Since when were these discontinued? I've only been away from the UK for like 3 years. I don't know how I missed all of this stuff. But those were the ones in the black packet in the UK. And I bloody love them as well. I'm not a big crisp eater. I tend to always go for sweet snacks over savoury snacks, unsurprisingly. I have a dessert blog. But apparently these don't exist anymore. That's a proper taste of childhood too. But then leaning back swiftly to my fellow chocolate addicts, we have someone who laments the lack of the timeout bar. I think this was another Cadbury one or a Nestle, I can't remember. This was a chocolate wafer bar. And this seems to be a common theme. Lots of like chocolate wafer products that used to be a thing in the noughties in the UK don't really seem to exist anymore, which is a bit nuts. We only really have the Kit Kat now. And chocolate and wafer is a thing that's so deeply rooted in European chocolate and snack culture that it's crazy we don't really have more of a market for it. The Time Out was a chocolate wafer bar. Similarly, people miss the Nestle Drifter, which I don't think I ever actually tried, but it was a chocolate and caramel wafer bar. And the Mars Delight is a very kind of commonly missed thing. Very, very similar to the also discontinued I believe, Milky Way crispy roll. This was like a tube of wafer rather than like the layered wafer and chocolate thing. It's like a tube of wafer covered in chocolate, and inside was like a milky caramel kind of cream. Delicious. You know, same kind of textures going on as a Kinder Bueno. But really, we're lacking in chocolate and wafer now that I think about it. And the last big one, and I don't know if these don't exist anymore or if they're just really hard to find, and it's something that usually we would have probably only eaten as children. And it was my go-to cinema snack, probably for my entire childhood, but really not the kind of thing that I would have bought otherwise. And something I haven't thought about for at least 5 years. And those are the magic stars. The chocolate magic stars with the little faces on them. They had such a specific flavour. Now, I can't remember if this was a Mars product. I think it was, because it definitely wasn't a Cadbury product, so I think it must have been Mars. And it came in this blue bag, this dark blue and kind of cerulean blue bag, with the kind of Mars font on it. And they were tiny little bite-sized star-shaped prisms of chocolate that all had little faces on them. Some of them were happy, some of them were sad, some of them were angry. I think some of them were sleeping. They were so sweet, clearly aimed at children, but they were delicious. I wonder if I can still find them. There were also other responses. There were very specific responses also about German treats. I remember someone commented about a yogurt snack that came in the shape of like a UFO, for example, and a couple of other comments, but lots of people repeating stuff that we have on this list here. And most of these I'd forgotten they'd existed, or I'd never even tried them, or I didn't even know they were discontinued. So now I want to tell you about the things that I miss, that partly are discontinued, one before I even got to try it, and then I want to get into some trends that I kind of wish would have stuck around a little bit longer. The main one, while we're sticking to UK-specific junk food, Mingles. I want to know if anyone remembers these. Mingles mint chocolates. I saw them advertised all the time, and I think they were discontinued by the time I was like 10 years old, and I never tried them because they were kind of marketed more to adults, and I didn't really know if I liked mint chocolate as a kid. I do now. This was like a green and brown box, and it was sort of marketed as a kind of classy chocolate choice, which, you know, in hindsight is quite funny, but it was almost marketed at the level of luxury as like a Ferrero Rocher, you know, it's for the grown-ups, Mingles. And I remember the adverts, and it was like 5 different kinds of chocolate mint things in the same box. There was one with like a cream filling, there was a crunchy one, I think, one with like an airy filling, like an Aero. I don't really know, but I never got to try them. But it was, for some reason, they came to mind the other day, and I was like, bastards, how dare they discontinue them before I try them. Another thing that I truly was dependent upon in my childhood were Cadbury Snaps. These were probably the equivalent, like the chocolate equivalent of a Pringle. And you can still buy knockoff versions of them. I have seen them in like Poundland or B&M and Home Bargains, but they don't hit the same, you know? It was like a cardboard tube that had a plastic tube-shaped container thing inside, and a stack of these Pringle-shaped, like that kind of cat's tongue-shaped chocolate with crispy bits in it. There was a plain one, I think there was an orange one, and like a caramel one or a mint one, I don't remember. I think there were 3 or 4 kinds, and they were as addictive as Pringles. If you had one, you had to eat the whole thing, basically, and I loved them. I absolutely loved those things as a kid, but they don't exist anymore as far as I'm aware. Or at least I can't find them in Italy. What a problem to have, you know. Something I really miss that I don't think we'll ever get back, which is a true tragedy, is proper full sugar Ribena. R.I.P., truly R.I.P. And I don't mean the diluting stuff, I don't mean the low sugar stuff, I mean the proper cartons and bottles of the heinously sweet blackcurrant juice that was Ribena. Because the version you can buy now is like half sugar, half sweeteners, and it just doesn't hit the same. It doesn't hit the same whatsoever. The liters of Ribena I drank as a child, I miss it. I miss it a lot. To me, there was nothing, and they're probably the only thing that comes as close, and not even quite as close, to being perfectly refreshing on a hot day is like a peach iced tea, like the Italian peach iced tea. but those first couple of mouthfuls of like freezing cold Ribena on a warm day or when you're thirsty, oh my God. Heaven itself could not fill that hole. And the last one that came to mind when thinking about full sugar Ribena in terms of like juices from when I was a kid, does anyone remember Umbongo? Slightly questionable marketing, I think. There was even, and don't tell me why I remember this, because the little jingle, the tune from the advert was catchy enough. There was also a version that was like twisted on its head that was called Ognob. If you're outside of the UK, you probably think I'm losing my mind. This was like a tropical themed kids, I say fruit juice, fruit flavoured juice. There was an idea of fruit involved. I don't remember what was in it, but it was like bright orange. Think like classic Sunny D, that level of sugary, fruity flavour. And it had like mango, passion fruit, orange, and something else in it. And it came in these tiny little cartons with animals all over it. It was delicious, but they discontinued it because it was rotting our teeth or something boring like that. But let's get into the trends. There are only 3 here that I have to put on the table, but trends that I didn't think at the time that I would miss, because of course, at the time when there's a trend, it's oversaturated and you're tired of it. But trends that I wish had stuck around a bit longer or that I wish would become a bit more permanent. One of them is from when we were adding sriracha to everything, mostly because I enjoy, including myself, the constant and widespread struggle of not knowing how to properly pronounce sriracha. Sriracha is an East Asian hot sauce, basically. Very, very strong, but has a very specific flavor, and it's so vibrant and so delicious and goes so well with so many things. And there was a point where, not just in the UK, but there was a point where we were putting it in everything. Like every recipe has sriracha. Every menu suddenly had a sriracha something. Whether it was on chicken, whether it was in noodles, whether it was a topping on something. It came out of nowhere and only stuck around for like a year. I miss it. I love sriracha. And I don't want to always have to carry it around with me, Similar with Frank's hot sauce or anything buffalo. Oh my God. Another thing that, again, I did not think I would ever say it because I was truly sick of it at the time, but I miss it a lot, and that is red velvet. Do you remember when there was just red velvet everything? Thanks also to the kind of cupcake trend and everything coming in from the US around the same era that we imported everything pulled pork into the UK. Red velvet was everywhere. And sometimes it was done terribly. Very often it was done terribly, actually. But like a well done red velvet, whether it's cake, cookie, cupcake, anything, that combination of chocolate and vanilla with that kind of buttermilk in there to make it super moist, and cream cheese frosting, folks. Cream cheese frosting. You only really see it in carrot cake otherwise, and often it's not done very well. But when it is done well, it's a drug. It is a class A drug. And I want to see it again. I miss it. Sometimes you do still find it in coffee shops and things like that, but I want to find it more often. And I already said this last one. I've already said the word. And again, as someone who made 6 billion cupcakes from between like 2010 to 2022, I miss cupcakes. I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there. It was a trend that was inescapable. And again, so many were done so badly. So many were dry. So many had crusty, over-sweetened buttercream on top. But a well-done cupcake it's a thing of the gods. It's a thing of the gods. It's not as faffy as a layer cake. They're cute to share. They're cute at a party. They're impressive to make. They're impressive to see while not being too difficult to make. The wonders you could work with a piping bag on top of a cupcake. And people were obsessed. I worked in a bakery when the cupcake trend was at its absolute peak. And I loved it. I love a cup. They're endlessly customizable in terms of texture, filling, topping, color combinations, consistency combinations, truly. I understand why the trend died even quicker than it appeared, but I do miss them. You see them very rarely nowadays compared to how it was 10 years ago, but I do think that they are something that will come back or something that will be kind of redone, or if not, they'll be looked upon fondly, even if they were often way, way too sweet. And that is it, folks. Obviously, if I have missed anything out in terms of product or trends that you wish would come back, probably mostly from the last kind of like 10 to 20 years more than anything, do let me know. Let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Send me a message on Instagram, shoot me an email, whatever you like. I enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed reading these comments, and it's nice to kind of immerse yourself in a bit of nostalgia around the festive season, you know, because it's a time when you bring out traditions. It's a time when you bring out stuff that you only bring out once a year. So looking back like this instead of looking forward to the horror of the future, it does the soul good sometimes, you know. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you as always for your contributions, and I can't wait to see which of these or which of our current food trends, current products stick around for the long run. We'll see. Thank you guys as always for watching, for listening, and I will see you for the next one.